that he could not physically survive staying in the courtroom. And the only way that he could get out of that courtroom was to plead guilty or to plead nolo contendere. He was not guilty of the things that he was charged with. He could not plead guilty, but he could plead that he no longer wanted to contest the charges, and that's what he did.
During the plea change, Richardson stood by his attorney's side on his crutches, as Judge Eubanks made sure Richardson knew exactly what he was doing. The judge wanted to make it clear Richardson could not say later on that because he's sick now, he was not thinking clearly. With that done, the judge accepted the plea. U.S. Attorney David Russell thinks Richardson would have been better off by cooperating with the government at first and promises more county commissioners will be indicted soon.
I wish that he had agreed to cooperate, but he has not done that, so we're certainly satisfied. It's just another domino falling. So this gives us, we'd have been in trial all next week, and this gives us more time to work on those. We got a grand jury coming in next week, and we'll be looking at county commissioners.
Richardson could face a maximum of 90 years in prison and up to a $24,000 fine. The court has allowed Richardson to go free on a signature bond until he is formally sentenced. A no-contest plea cannot be used against the defendant in future court action. There was no plea bargaining today, but the defense apparently did discuss the plea change with Judge Eubanks this morning. Prosecutors are happy now because they're batting a perfect average in the county corruption probe.
The average number of reported runaways in Oklahoma City runs close to 200 cases a month. Across the nation, around 1 million youths reportedly left their homes last year, and authorities feel that when added to those cases not reported, the figure may run closer to a staggering 3 million. There's no typical runaway, but the average age seems to center around 14 years old. Figures show that as many come from two-parent households as from broken homes. Experts who deal with runaways every day say these kids don't feel they can cope with a problem. Maybe trouble at school, involvement with drugs or alcohol, an unwanted pregnancy, or simply a lack of attention at home. Some only stay gone a few hours, many a few days, and even worse, there are those who disappear for several years. Douglas Gibson works with these kids all year long at the Youth Crisis Center here in town and feels the state fair is getting a bad rap in connection with the missing girls.
Well, I think the fair is a congregation of a large number of people. And anytime you have that large number of people in a short time span gathering, then you're going to have a certain number of people that will be present who may take advantage of young people. And then when they disappear from the fair, because the fair is a time of celebration and happiness and things of that nature, then it gets more attention. But we see no particular increase in the numbers of young people that run away during the fair or when a circus comes to town or anything.
The OU Regents have embroiled themselves in controversy for the past couple of months. They decided to build their new Energy Research Center on a site that would require the destruction of several blocks of homes. Norman residents say they weren't informed their neighborhoods were being considered as sites and that the university turned down usable locations on campus. This morning they got their chance to air their disapproval of the location and the way the decision was made.
No one refutes the need for academic excellence at OU. I believe that the majority of the Norman community, including the people here representing neighborhood associations, support the construction of the Energy Resource Center, but not at your current proposed site, not in utter disregard of Norman's comp plan and elected government officials, and not without a public hearing.
That the wisest plan is that which involves the most number of people, the most carefully thought out planning that could be had, with the most input that possibly might be had before a decision is made.
There are possibilities that, as to my mind and on the basis of what I heard last week, have really not been looked at carefully enough. And I think that's all we're asking, that if you're going to go ahead and bulldoze a neighborhood, you need to give it some more time and look at it more carefully and really consider the alternatives.
We come to this conclusion with great regret, and I do so with great personal discomfort. But the recommendation which we made to the Board of Regents last summer, which was one that the staff made to me, is the most seriously considered decision in my 3 years, 1 month, and 3 days with the University of Oklahoma. The most elaborately discussed, the most publicly debated, the most thoroughly analyzed, and I'm convinced the most that it could not be more absolutely right.
Apparently, Dr. Banowski was speaking for all the regents. In rapid succession, they affirmed that their minds were made up and they wanted to get the situation over with now. The vote to go ahead with the proposal was unanimous. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Norman.
Unanimously. The second item on the agenda.
She answered the phone the other day, and it was Jefferson, Charlotte's school.
Yeah.
And they were checking on why Charlotte wasn't at school. You know, things like that.
Well, then they apologized.
Did they? Did they go into apologize?
Yeah, she said that she dialed it by mistake, but it's still too late, you know, they knew. Yeah.
Things like that. Just, you know. They've done things that we didn't realize they could do. And we appreciate it.
Of September. It's not very long ago, and the first meeting he had come to of that kind will be located on a site east of the College of Engineering. The center will be designed to reflect.
I said that as governor, I would match up to $15 million that Mr. Banowski, President Banowski, and his supporters could raise. And Bill Saxon said, and I'll match that. The largest gift in the history of the state, a gift, ladies and gentlemen, would you join with me in thanking them, a gift of $30 million.
There is no need for thanks for our gift. The pleasure is all mine and my wife's. Is to thank you and to thank Oklahoma for my family, for my friends, for my roots. I guess the real reason for this gift is to say how proud we are to be Oklahomans. Thank you.
Spend some time with firefighters and you quickly learn about burns. 90% of burn injuries happen at home. The cause, carelessness. The key to most burn injuries and deaths. Spend some time in a hospital burn unit and you learn even more about burns. Burns are among the most frequent severe injuries to children. We could probably diminish the burn patient number by 80% if persons were truly conscious of burn prevention. A few rules to remember.
A lot of fires, of course, are caused by people using flammable liquids. They store gasoline in their homes or in their garages where it may come into contact with some kind of a heat source. They use gasoline oftentimes because it's quick and easy and inexpensive when they should use a solvent of some kind, perhaps if they're cleaning with gasoline, or perhaps some sort of a spot remover instead of gas. Gasoline is just so dangerous because it's always ready to burn. It's always in a vapor state when you use it, and any match or spark or any kind of a heat source can ignite that vapor and suddenly have a very big fire.
Never smoke in bed. Keep burnables away from space heaters, fireplaces, and stoves. Smother a pan fire, never pour water on it. Keep matches away from children. Install a smoke detector and practice a home escape plan. Cool a burn, pour cold water on it, never use butter.
Feel your skin burning, you can feel the heat intensity, you feel your breath going away and starting to pass out.
I would say, to put it bluntly, being burnt is literally hell.
It takes money to drill for oil, and lots of it. Millions of dollars are spent daily to find the precious crude. Investors can make big bucks if they hit the right well, or if they hit several small wells. People can also lose big. It happens daily. Oklahoma oilman Dan King said on Action 4 AM, investors must realize it's a high-risk business.
The return on your investment is also very large. An investment is based upon your return on the dollar you put in, and realizing it's a high-risk venture, you must be prepared that there can be a dry hole. Well, nobody wants them. We don't want them.
King advises people who want to invest to put their money into companies who make their profits from the oil and gas discovered rather than from the promotion of the venture. Ben McCain, Action 4.
He assured me that no way, in any way, shape, or form, that the sale would be any way jeopardize the security of the State of Israel. And so on that justification, plus some things that we've been able to put in a resolution which the President has signed, I'm supporting the AWEC sale.
A car was traveling eastbound on I-40 when it apparently lost control and crossed the median. It then hit a westbound Volkswagen Rabbit head-on. The Volkswagen then hit a van in the next lane. The three-car accident has left 2 dead and 1 man in satisfactory condition. The driver of the Volkswagen Rabbit was dead when emergency vehicles arrived at the scene. A woman riding in the car that crossed the median died in an emergency unit from a cardiac arrest. The names of these victims have not been released, pending notification of next of kin. It is thought that they were from out of state. All those in the van, the third automobile to become involved, were unharmed. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Former Oklahoma County Commissioner J.P. Dick Richardson is the only state commissioner waiting to hear his fate as a result of the corruption probe. Richardson pleaded no contest of 15 counts of extortion and mail fraud and is to be sentenced soon. If he has to go to prison, he would be only the second commissioner in the state to do time for accepting illegal kickbacks while in office. This is despite the fact nearly 100 current and former commissioners have admitted their guilt. The shaded area of this map shows where all 3 commissioners in that particular county have been implicated in the scandal. Shaded areas here show where 2 commissioners in the county are guilty of taking kickbacks while in office. And finally, here's a look at the counties where only 1 commissioner so far has been found guilty or admitted guilt to corruption charges. The total picture is to become more shaded in coming months, and Ulster commissioners who had at least 10 years of service will be eligible for full retirement benefits. This is prior to passage of a new law trying to stop those pensions. We asked the newly elected county commissioner of Oklahoma County his feelings on guilty commissioners receiving retirement benefits.
That individual has contributed a portion of his salary into the retirement fund, and then as such, once he receives a certain tenure in government, he becomes vested, which means that he is eligible for retirement at some point, but he has contributed all the way through. So it is his, in a sense, it is his money.
Besides talking with Buchanan, we took a random survey of the public on if it thinks guilty commissioners should receive pensions.
I think that a lot of the county commissioners are getting off light. I think that, like I say, they ought to mail their checks to them in jail.
If they've had a long service with them, they've had a good, clean record, and everybody's going to make a mistake. Well, I think they still should receive some benefits. They really should.
When you look at it, if they're taking under the table money, they should put that away for their retirement.
So even though the people we talk with today think that county commissioners who took illegal kickbacks don't deserve retirement, lawmakers don't necessarily agree. It really doesn't matter whether the people who work in this office are honest or dishonest. As long as they put in the required amount of time, they will receive their benefits. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Oklahoma County Building.
It looks like Oklahomans are responding to the challenge. We're using less electricity. Thanks to those conservation efforts and a cooler summer, Oklahomans use nearly 10% less electricity in their homes during July, August, and September compared with a year ago. With Oklahomans cutting back and cutting off, you'd think we'd also be cutting our bills, but think again. OG&E says our savings have been eaten up by rate increases.
OG&E spokesman Dave Rayburn points to last January's rate increase.
For residential customers, it was approximately 15%.
Dave, would you say that rate increases are something we're just going to have to live with?
I'm afraid so for the foreseeable future. What we hope to do is to spread them out so that they don't come as frequently as they have, but part of that is going to have to depend on what the Corporation Commission decides when we do go out for one, whether to allow all of it or how much of it. And of course, the rate of inflation is going to control that to a great extent.
As long as inflation continues to keep the economy going in circles, there's no reason to believe that climbing electric rates are going to slow down a bit. Larry Audis, Action 4.
The committee heard testimony from the president of the County Clerk Association, Nelda Gray. She said her association dislikes the idea of going to a county manager type system. In fact, she said the association disliked many of the changes the committee is considering. She says the county clerks would much rather strengthen existing laws with more rigid punishment for commissioners who abuse it.
We are saddened at what has happened to our county commissioners. They are our fellow workers at the courthouse and our friends, and they are still good people. And our hearts goes out to them and their families for the shame that they're going through. Yet, at the same time, we recommend that the penalty for county commissioners convicted of accepting kickbacks be more strong than what it is now. And we further recommend that the penalty for the vendors giving the kickbacks be even greater than for the county commissioners, as the vendors are the ones who encouraged and fostered giving kickbacks and kept it going for so long.
Everyone says changes are needed in the county government system, but according to the witness today, drastic changes are not needed. She says the system can work if the laws are enforced and the commissioners are paid enough to keep them honest. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the state capitol.
She was then sworn in as an adult and took the stand and had to speak in a microphone, and sitting very much closer to the judge, who's all dressed in black. And I was sitting way in the back of the courtroom, and I wanted to sit up close to her, but they wouldn't let me.
Was the young man accused of raping her in the courtroom?
Oh, yes.
He was.
Yes, he was sitting directly in front of her, his parents. She was further away she was closer to them than she was to myself.
Psychologist Dr. Vernon Sisney says emotional scars can be left with a molested child, but the pain can be eased.
The child is traumatized enough by this, but when the parent becomes hysterical about it, that certainly tells the child this is a horrible thing that's been committed, that I have committed. And the child, and after all, about 2, we learn by just feeling that there's a pleasurable area. And then we kind of lose it for a while, and then it comes back again. And this is a pleasurable area, and we know by omission more than commission that this is something we shouldn't touch or have anything to do with. And so they're made to feel guilty already. We are. Now, if something happens in molestation, then if the parent gets really upset, now please, I'm not saying that the parent should not be concerned and the action should not be taken. I believe that very strongly. But let's not keep talking to the child and warn them every time they go out. Now, you be careful now, you know what happened before. And that sort of thing, or become crying and upset before the child. Because we could really traumatize the child that way, and then psychotherapy takes a long time.
Where does a child learn about pedophiles, a person who would prey on their emotions?
We don't have any specific program that is focused on that particular problem. We do have a general safety curriculum that is handled along with other subject matter at appropriate times when things come up. And very often teachers will use the timing of something occurring in the news to discuss safe things to do and things that children should not do with the youngsters in their class.
See, I first feel that sex education should be in the home and stay there. But if it isn't gained there, the child needs this protection. It needs that knowledge, and it needs to come from some place, and the school seems like a likely place. But again, you've got to consider that we have to have enough education and knowledge about how to put this across, because teachers are embarrassed about it too. They're people just like you and I are.